My name is Ed Biedick. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and this is Inside Addiction.
Ed, do you remember the first time you drank?
Yeah, I was, at the time, I lived on Burlake Road, Naval Park. I was 13 years old. My father had some, which was apple cider at the time, but turned to be hard cider. And we knew it was tough stuff. You couldn't even drink it the way it was, so we had to mix something in it. And that evening we had guys climbing phone poles to check their time on their watch. We had quite an interesting evening, and that was the first time. And this is when we were kids, just having a good time.
How old were you then?
13 years old.
Yeah. And how was it growing up? Normal childhood?
Well, we witnessed a lot of drinking around us, and one thing for certain that I had in my mind is I was going to make sure that I could drink, and I was going to show everyone either the proper way to drink or that I could do it better than anyone else. And I certainly proved that. It was quite a thing, and I'd seen it my whole life. I'd seen the results of it. I'd seen the fights after the drinking, and the houses being torn apart and all that stuff. And I grew up with it. It was something that was always there. And so instead of, I come from a family of 8, and I'm the one that out of a family of 8 that ended up with a problem with it. Not that they all didn't drink to some nature, but not to mine. I always did my best to outdrink everyone.
So you're talking about when you were about 13 drinking out of the barrel.
Yeah.
At what age do you think that your alcoholism turned into alcoholism and it progressed into alcoholism?
Well, as the later years of high school, when it got to be that to be part of whatever you were in a school, if you weren't part of the in crowd of the A students, you
Sure.
were part of some crowd. I chose the other crowd, which we drank, and we drank as much as we can get a hold of it, or whatever it was. We had at the time at my house, we used to have beer delivered by the week, by the case, so that in most cases no one knew what was in the basement. So we knew where we can get it. There wasn't a question of even going to buy it. We just took it out of the basement and drank it, and we did it for the longest time until they finally caught up with us. But we did that. At the time, Rupert's Knickerbocker beer was 3 quarts for $1. If you could drink something that cost $1 and it was 3 quarts, you should have been arrested for that alone, just for drinking it.
You might be an alcoholic.
You might be. Yeah. There's a question here about what you can and cannot do, and the only thing I did, I saw that some people around me drank when they were at parties or when they were with people or when they were out, and very soon along the way I discovered I did not have to be with people.
Yeah, it didn't have to be a party to be a party.
I could have a party on my own, and I also wanted to always have a beer in my pocket, no matter what. If it was the end of the night and everyone said everyone's going home, I would fill my pockets with beer. Just that security to get home with. Even if I wasn't going to drink it right then. I actually couldn't in most cases because I couldn't swallow anymore.
Wow.
I had occasions where I would drink beer till I got sick and then start over. And people would look at you, how can you do that? And it wasn't a question of, no one very often looked at the fact. They would point at you and use you as the record of saying, at least I'm not like him.
Wow.
And to me, that was one of the things that, that stuck. Even years later, it stuck in my head that I was the one that was pointed to.
At least I'm not like Ed. At least I don't drink like Ed.
Yes, and some people, I think, invited me to parties for that purpose. So they had me to point to. If they wanted to drink, they would say, at least I'm not like him. And I know very well because when I stopped, I was no longer invited to those parties. So it was a thing that seemed to fit right in. You were all of a sudden you were out of that loop.
Now, how long did that go on? How long did that go on for until, for lack of a better term, you had your moment of clarity Was
Oh,
it back and forth? Did you have periods of abstinence?
The famous thing, especially if you're a Catholic, you've got that opportunity every year. Lent comes around every year, and you can give up something.
Give it up.
Yeah. Oh, and who can't make 40 days? Well, I know one thing. I made it for 40 days. But the problem being is on Easter, I would try to drink what I hadn't had in the 40 days. And that was, people would look at me and say, well, how on earth could you do that? You didn't drink for 40 days. Of course, them not knowing is that I depended on the fact that I was going back every day from that point on, ready for that celebration when it came. And I mean to the point of so sick and drunk that it was unbelievable that you would do that to yourself and plan it. Besides, not even this was a thing that I knew was coming, and I made it through. I didn't do that very often. I found out that was one of the things that maybe we won't get into that and show people that you can actually, because the reception of it was too much of, well, you did it for 40 days, and after that people expected that you could live without it for 40 days. Well, that was fine, but they didn't look at it from inside me and what that was like. But we did, we were, the drinking only showed the worst part when they gave me a license to drive. Up until that point, either I got rides with people or I walked. And I don't even know sometimes how I got home, or I was within miles of my home, and I still don't know how I got home in a lot of cases. I got home one evening, crawled up the stairs because I knew I couldn't make it, and fell from the top. And when I opened my eyes, my father was standing there and said, "How long do you think it'll take you to get up this time?" And he had heard me come in and go up those stairs. And those were all things that, but drinking was a natural thing at my home. It was something we'd seen our whole life. It wasn't something that was strange. I didn't go out and do this, that I'd never seen it. We saw more drinking than I had to. I had parties at my home when I was growing up that the glass on the floor from Four Roses bottles covered the entire floor. The table, the counters, everything. And this was just from the bottles after the drinking was done and the fight started. And this is something we saw. So it was, but these were all things I was going to beat.
So you got your license, you were how old?
I was 21 when I got my license.
You were 21 when you got your license. So when you got your license, your alcoholism changed a little bit.
It sure did. We started hitting things pretty quick. For a while I was safe somewhat because I almost went with the idea at the time that I couldn't drive when I started to drink, and I was safe to begin with. But all of a sudden, I didn't have people to take me home anymore, and so the driving and the accidents started appearing. Of course, at the time, we're talking back in the 70s, and it's certainly not what we have today. It wasn't as difficult to get away from an accident, a drunk driving accident. A lot of times you were brought home. At the time that, before I went to a judge finally, I'd never been brought before a judge for drunk driving. I had totaled 5 brand new cars. And this is within less than a year.
Wow.
5 brand new Impalas were in a pile. And one of the accidents, my 3-year-old son was in the car with me. And we drove off the road and coming out of West Sand Lake, went into the trees. On that one I called the insurance company.